This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
Which leads us to where we left off last Sunday, and that's the second promise, which is the promise of resurrection. God says, I promise that there will be a resurrection in your life. Yet a little while, and the world will see me no more, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. In that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Now when he said in that day, what he was talking about is the day that this happens, you'll know that what I'm saying is true, and that's where I am. What he was telling them was, when you see that I live again, you will know. I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen. When you see it happen, then remember this. I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Now remember that it was just starting to sink in to these disciples that Jesus was telling them, and he had actually been telling them for some time, but now it's just starting to sink in that he was going to die. And here, Jesus says something very startling. He tells them, actually again, because he's told them this before, but now it's starting to make sense. Now the fuzziness is starting to wear off. And he's telling them again that he's going to rise up from the dead. And that because he rises up from the dead, he will rise up from the dead because he has power over death. And because he has power over death and rises up, they also will not be defeated by death. Now, he doesn't say they're not going to die. He says they're not going to be defeated by death. Because I live, you also will live. In other words, because I live again, you also will live again. You are going to rise up again. You are going to live again, even after you die. In that day, you will know. And so he's telling them that the resurrection is the promise of eternal life. Now, this is really important. Because he lives again, you will live again. The resurrection is proof of eternal life. The Bible can talk about eternal life. It says it's there. Yep, we all know that there's eternal life. But the proof is that Jesus rose from the dead. Now, the amazing thing is that when Jesus rose from the dead, and when you look back at it and look at, we've studied this so many times, isn't it interesting that it was never disputed? Nobody ever said, it was a hoax. People say it today. But back then, nobody said it back then. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, they paid Roman soldiers, to report it, but it was never really reported. There's no history that says that that's what happened. There's no writings. Some of the great historians, even of that day, never mentioned it. They referred to it as actually happening. And so this fact in history that's been reported by so many witnesses, it is probably the most legally viable event in history because of all of the witnesses that corroborated it. This legal fact that Jesus rose from the dead had a purpose and a plan. The reason Jesus rose from the dead, why would he rise from the dead unless there was a purpose? The purpose was to prove that there is eternal life, that there is life after death, that death is not the end. Now, there was a common belief by a number of the different sects of Jews that believed that once you die, you're dead. That once you die, you stay dead and it's over with. That's the end. And what he was basically saying was, guys, don't get into this trap. Don't get into the trap where people say, once you die, it's over with. Then your life is over with, and we just move on. What he was saying was that because he lives, they would live again. And what he was saying was that my resurrection is proof. My resurrection will be proof that there is life after death. My resurrection is proof of eternal life.
On behalf of Dan Hurst and the Open Class, we want to thank you for watching. We hope it was a blessing.